Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by Bet Online. I'm Ross Geiger, joined alongside Bruce Bernstein of Pure Hoops Media and World B, Michael Freer. This is episode number 58, the Josh Tiven episode, as the Norwich, Connecticut native actively wears number 58 as an NBA referee and has officiated over 800 games throughout his 13 years in the NBA. But before we get to tonight's exciting special guest, I do want to make a quick reminder here to everyone that Bet Online is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and the latest matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games, available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on all the action. Remember to use our promo code BLEAV, that is BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. And tonight we'll go ahead and start by introducing our special guest, as we're thrilled to be joined by one of the league's best sharpshooters and current forward for the San Antonio Spurs, Doug McDermott. Doug, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I've been tuning in, and it's great to be on here with you guys. You guys talk about some great stuff.
Awesome. I really appreciate your support, Doug, and glad to hear you are an active listener of our podcast. So, outside of the exciting developments that have taken place in San Antonio this offseason, how's the summer been treating you?
It's been really good. Just obviously with the news we received on lottery night, that was definitely a great way to kind of start things. And, I've just been trying to keep my game sharp. Golf game first. No, I'm just kidding. But just been in the gym, just trying to get better. And then I was out in Vegas for a little bit with the Spurs, watching Wemby and watching the rest of those young guys. And, we had multiple other young guys out there playing. So it was just overall, it's flying by like it always does, but just super excited for the season start.
Good stuff there. So you mentioned having been out there in Vegas to see him live. I mean, what were your biggest takeaways and what really stood out to you with his game?
I mean, I was there for the first two games, so I saw the first one where, he was just a little rusty. I think he took some time off after his season in France, and you could tell there was just so much hype in that crowd, and it was just almost too much to put on the kid night one. So night two, he obviously adjusted, and the Spurs saw what they needed to see and shut him down from there. But just overall, honestly, more impressed with him as a person. We got a chance just to briefly talk to him. And, I think he's just a very mature kid for his age. He's been preparing for this his whole life. So it's cool to see a kid that mature. And I think he's just ready to hit the ground running, right away.
I don't think there's been anyone that's come into the league with so much sort of hoopla, probably since LeBron James did, 20 years ago. And you said he's mature. Have you found in your experience that some of the guys who come from Europe, because San Antonio has always been a great spot for international players, do they have a different kind of makeup when it comes to dealing with all this attention?
Well, they've had so many, like you said, Bruce, and I think they know, obviously it starts with Pop. He just lets everyone be themselves. It doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is. He just allows you to be yourself as a player and as a person. And I think just the San Antonio community, they embrace you different down there. It's not like a big city like New York or Chicago or LA. You can really just be yourself and, get a nice house and just fit in with the community right away. And I think that's what's helped guys that have come before me and before us be so successful there.
Hey, Doug, I was curious. Victor's coming in with a world of hype, coming in from Europe. When you came into the league, you had credentials of college player of the year, All-American. You didn't, while you didn't have the hype, nobody's really had the hype outside of LeBron that Victor has. There was some, say pressure, but there was some credentials behind your entrance in the league, and you had to go through the rookie. What can you give to impress upon Victor as far as how you had to deal with your rookie season and to help him get through that this first year?
Yeah, I think looking back, I would have handled things a lot differently. I think just being a perfectionist and putting so much pressure on myself, right out the gates, and just not putting in as much work as I should have, right out of the gates. I think that's looking back, things I would change. But luckily for me, I was given multiple chances to be where I'm at today. And there's been a lot of teams that have taken chances on me. And, I'm very grateful for them because I learned things along the way. And I think kids now coming to the league have that mentorship from other pros, other people they played with overseas, or, people reaching out to them. I think just the resources are there, and I'm happy to be a one to all these guys. So I think I can use my experience. Not that I'm Victor Wembanyama or any of those guys. I feel like just little things I feel like I can help them with, and that's just really putting in the work and try and blocking out as much noise as you can.
Now, Doug, I know obviously we worked together in New York. I'm very curious, obviously, just looking at Wemby's size, and obviously you had the chance to play with Porzingis with the Knicks. Is there any benefit to have played with a guy that has a similar frame size and offensively can stretch the defense out to the 3-point line? Like, do you see any type of like benefits to having already played with KP and now kind of transitioning that over to playing with Wemby?
For sure. Yeah, that's a good point. When I met Wemby for the first time, I was like, dang, this guy's even taller than Porzingis. It's just crazy. But I think obviously they're similar in different ways. KP liked to post up a lot of mid-post stuff, which I'm sure Pop will have Wemby doing as well. But I think he's a guy that can really handle it and facilitate for others, which is something, KP can do, but it's not his big strength. So I think it's just gonna be a combination of, mid-post stuff with, trying to feed him on the block as much as we can, but also, letting him initiate offense. So I think that stuff with KP and, Hornacek back in the day is definitely going to help me, though.
Doug, so much has been discussed about the Miami Heat culture, which I believe is legit. I really do. But your current team, the Spurs, had a culture of excellence going on 20 plus years ago. I mean, they've been winning titles since 1999. Can you describe, what the Spurs franchise culture is like and what sustains it, even when the team hits a dry spell like it has for the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the vibe in the facility every day. Everyone's on the same page. Obviously, a lot of people have been there for a really long time, and they've seen a lot of special things take place, and so the standard is very high every day you walk in, and they're going to hold you to that. But they also they care about you as human beings first, and I think that starts at the top with RC and Pop and Brian Wright. When they call you, they're asking how you're doing, how your family's doing. It's not so much about basketball. And I think when you put those priorities first, guys are just going to play so hard for you every night, and they're going to want to work hard. They're going to want to go to the gym every day. And that's just kind of the vibe that I get when I'm in San Antonio every day.
Now, you've played for, I don't know, maybe around 8 NBA coaches at this point, during the course of your career. You are the son of a coach. Your dad, Gregg, has been an institution at Creighton. You were probably his first recruit, for all I know. I'm not really sure. But
Yeah.
you mentioned Pop. Compare and contrast your father and Pop as a father figure, let's say, for a basketball team.
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously very different. I think my dad has probably stolen more things from Coach Popovich than Popovich has stolen from him. So that's a big difference right there. But I feel like the family culture, like I was saying earlier, there's days where, we could have a really tough loss in San Antonio, and, we'll have an off day just because Pop's like, be around your family, stay at home. And I've kind of just been used to that ever since the college days at Creighton. That's just kind of how my dad operated as well. It's bigger than basketball. And, I think Creighton has played faster and, very unselfish. And a big part of that is from those Spurs days, because that was kind of growing up. That was just kind of what we watched. It was always like, let's play like the Spurs. Let's make that extra pass. Let's Spurs basketball. Like that would be set in timeout. So just to be able to be in that jersey now, it kind of feels like it's all come full circle.
Hey, Doug, we've heard so much about how Victor is going to benefit by going and being coached by Gregg Popovich, and he couldn't go to a better situation, because of Coach Popovich. Can you describe what exactly is going to be? What do you envision? How is Coach Popovich going to make a difference? Where I don't want to say other coaches wouldn't, but for lack of a better phrase, where is he the difference maker in Victor's development? Why is this such a great situation for him?
I think it's huge because Pop's gonna coach him hard. There's probably a lot of places he could have gone where, maybe they weren't coaching him as hard. And I think Pop is gonna keep it real with anyone. He doesn't care who you are. And I think that's why Tim Duncan and Manu and Tony Parker were so good for so long, because he was able to coach them like he was able to coach Matt Bonner or, someone like that, like Danny Green or just other guys on the floor. So I think that's the biggest difference with coming in and being coached by a veteran coach. He's going to coach you hard. He's going to keep it real with you. And I think from everything I've heard, Wemby wants to be coached hard as well. So I think that's just going to be huge for his development. And we're obviously going to put the ball in his hands a lot. He's going to be the focal point along with Jeremy Sochan. And I think that's the difference with a veteran coach.
And speaking of veterans, Doug, of course, this past offseason, you guys added some other veterans to kind of help you out in that role of being a leader on the team. You've got Cameron Payne, Reggie Bullock, and C.D. Usman. Each of the guys not only bring playoff experience, but also have played with a teammate that attracts a ton of the spotlight. You've always been in the spotlight, being the star player, college basketball player of the year, playing at Madison Square Garden for the Knicks. How big is that veteran presence going to be within that locker room next year as you guys get set for what's about to be a huge season full of buzz? I mean, wherever you guys go, the arenas are going to be packed, waiting to see your rookie. And obviously with a young team, that can be kind of hard to navigate at times.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that because, the last 2 years have been tough, not a lot of wins. And, I think we're just all really looking forward to that, kind of having that hype back and be able to play for something. And I think with our experience, like you said, there's a lot of guys that play with some stars and we kind of know what it's like. And we're also not guys that are going to be, doing too much. We're just going to lead by example. That's my main thing. I can talk all I want, but, I think my main thing is trying to be a leader, just by working hard and being there on time every day for these guys. And I think that's kind of going to be my approach. And I haven't met all the new guys, all the new vets we signed, but I'm sure we're going to have a meeting at some point on how we're going to, kind of manage this locker room and make sure we're all together.
I'd like to ask you about a situation that some players have been, exposed to, but you definitely had this happen to you twice. You were traded 2 consecutive years during a season. Okay. 2016 and 17, I think both of those seasons you were traded in the middle of the season. What are the special challenges that you faced or that a player faces when you have to change teams during a season?
Yeah, there's a lot more than just the basketball piece. You're getting on a flight like the night before the game with your new team, and you have to, I 1 year I was in Toronto, I think, when I was with the Knicks with Ross. We had a game that day against Toronto, and I took a nap on shoot-around day, after shoot-around, and just woke up to a call from Mark Bartlesty, my agent, saying you've been traded to Dallas. And I thought I was going to maybe have a few days off and, get there, learn the system a little bit. And next thing you know, I'm on a plane from Toronto to New York to pack my bags. The next day I fly to Dallas and play in a game that night. So it's crazy. You're living out of hotel rooms, dealing with moving companies, you're renting Airbnbs. It's a whole lot more that goes into it than just basketball.
I actually remember that time in your life, Doug, because as you may remember, during All-Star weekend, I actually had a flight from New York that connected through Dallas, and we actually shared the flight from Dallas to Phoenix, where you were coming to get away. And I was like, Doug, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a few weeks. And you're like, man, it's been a whirlwind in my life, just trying to get everything settled. I still, wasn't funny at the time, but it's now kind of funny to kind of look back on that time. And
it really is.
The odds of that. And
I don't wish that on anyone, having to go through all that. I mean, it's cool, obviously, being in the NBA, so I can't complain. But, it's a lot to handle.
Now, going back to Victor one last time here, especially with what we saw in Summer League, one of the things that really kind of surprised me about his game is how selfless of a passer he is. I thought he did a great job kind of, feeding it to his teammates, not forcing things, and understanding he's going to attract a lot of attention when he has the ball in his hands. That's obviously going to translate over immediately, even at the NBA level. What I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on is the fact that, like, not only are you a shooter, but you're one of the best backdoor cutters in the league. I think that surprises a lot of people until they actually start watching your film and getting to see you play a lot. How do you think you'll benefit, not just from him spacing the floor for you and getting you free in spots, but knowing, like, if you cut, he's probably going to find you?
Yeah, I mean, I take pride in that. I feel like my strength is definitely shooting, but I feel like I can catch people off guard a lot with that backdoor cut. And you saw that with Victor right off the bat. He's willing to make that pass, and he's going to draw so much attention, like you said, in the middle of the paint. And that's where I feel like I can do some damage, kind of sneaking in there and getting some easy ones. So that's the way the Spurs play. He gives us so much freedom just to move without the ball, and that's why it's so exciting playing there, because you really can't make a mistake as long as you're doing an unselfish thing.
Yeah, and that, to be honest, I feel like, we haven't talked about the other young, talented players you guys have on your roster. Of course, obviously the focal point is Victor, because he is such a mystery and a marvel as far as his size and stuff. But Jeremy Sochan, he was a guy that had a very promising rookie year in the NBA. Can you kind of describe who he is as, like, a person, as a teammate? He obviously seems to have some personality with the different hair colors, and has a lot of extracurricular things going on with his swagger there. So, can you talk about who he is as a person, and then what do you see for him moving forward into next year as a player?
Yeah, I really enjoy playing with him. He's one of my favorite rookies that I've had throughout these years. He just he has so much confidence in himself, and I think you see that with his outfits and his hair, and it translates to the court. People kind of dare him to shoot out there, and he's not scared. He'll go up to the free throw line and shoot with one arm, and it's fun to be around him, man, because he doesn't care about too much, doesn't care what people think about him, and it's kind of everyone on the team kind of looks at him and just like, what is this guy doing? Even Pop is like, just laughs sometimes, and you don't see that much. So it's cool. It's contagious. And I think guys play loose when they're on the floor with him, because they know he's going to find you. He's unselfish. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Ben Simmons, in Philly, where he's a big point guard. He can get to anywhere he wants. And I think he is just only going to get better, especially under the Spurs.
Doug, since Ross brought up Jeremy Sochan's hair, I need to ask you, are you going to be talking to Reggie Bullock about who his stylist is?
Yeah, we got some wild hairdos this year, and I'm going to try and stay out of it. We got Zach Collins with the slick back hair, and we got all kinds of stuff. So I think me and Jeremy had a bet actually on the Creighton Baylor game, but he never came through. He said he would dye his hair blue, and I said I would dye my hair green if we lost, and he still hasn't done that. So maybe I'll have to let him know next year.
Now, let's not forget Cameron Payne is also a personality. So you're adding another guy into the mix there. That should be a lot of fun to have in your locker room. So another question that I had for you, of course, as we've been talking about teammates, is, of course, you were drafted by the Bulls, and you played alongside Jimmy Butler. I went to Marquette. I was on campus with Jimmy throughout his entire time there. I never really thought he'd turn into the player that he is today. Wanted to kind of get your thoughts on some of the glimpses you saw back then in Chicago, and then just kind of reflecting back on this impressive postseason run that he went on with the Heat. Was that any surprise to you at all, just knowing who he is?
Not at all. I mean, he kind of set the tone for me early on. He was such a hard worker, and he was a great vet to me. He would invite me to work out with him, at like 5 a.m. in the off season. He took me to Cabo with him, to San Diego with him. And, he kind of took me under his wing, and I really appreciate Jimmy for that. And it kind of just taught me how hard I need to work. And that's why I'm not surprised with anything he does, anymore, because I just know he truly does outwork everyone. I don't think there's a harder working guy in the league. So I think the playoffs were a reflection of that. And I was pulling for him. Obviously, I wanted him to win, but they came up short. But I won't be surprised if he's back there next year, because he's working right now as we speak.
I wanted to ask you about another one of your teammates on the Bulls back in the day. When you began, I believe, your third season there, Rajon Rondo became your teammate. He always seemed to be very protective of his younger teammates. We know that his hoop IQ is considered to be off the charts. So do you feel that Rajon has the potential to be a successful NBA coach if he chooses to go that route?
Yeah, 100%. Out of anyone I played with, he's probably like number one on my list. So I'm glad you said that, because he was another great vet for me. He would sometimes just say some crazy stuff out on the court. He knew like the team's next 3 play calls. Like, this is just like a game 47, in Cleveland or something. And he would know their plays. He would know what plays of ours were going to work against them, and he would call them before we saw them. So I've always had so much respect for him, and it won't surprise me when he's a great coach, because sometimes coaches had to tell him to shut up, because like he knew like everything going on, and we weren't ready to teach that yet in training camp, and he was already on like day 5. So he was great, and a joy to play with.
Hey, Doug, you mentioned how you struggled your rookie year, and ever since then you've been almost a 42% shooter from 3-point range. You've been basically hovered around, very consistent throughout your career since that rookie year. I'm just curious, is there one thing that was there anything that somebody taught you, or what was the biggest thing to help you go from that rookie season to the second season and beyond, being the kind of shooter and consistent outside threat that you became?
Honestly, I think it was literally the rookie year that taught me everything. I looking back, I'm just so happy that it actually happened the way it did, because I was coming off such a great college career, and I kind of got humbled there, the first year. And I think a lot of guys would have given up, but in my DNA, I just wanted to keep working, and I never had worked harder than I did that summer, and it propelled everything from there. And at the time, I hated Tibbs, and he probably knows that. And now I love the guy, because he taught me how to be a pro. And, I'll always, cherish that time, because it was tough not being able to play and seeing all these guys in your class do well. And, but I think it's helped me have a longer career. So I'll always, appreciate Tibbs for that.
Now, World B brought up your 3-point shooting percentage, how consistent it's been for quite some time now. I believe you're going into your 10th NBA season this year. It's got to feel like it's flying by. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've never been asked to participate in a 3-point shootout, have you?
I was about to do it in Indianapolis that year, and then the bubble or the pandemic hit, because I was on the Pacers at the time, so I would have been able to do it in the home city, but unfortunately I wasn't able to do it because it got delayed, and then by the time I just wasn't able to do it that year. But no, I'm still waiting on that next invite, so we'll have to start a campaign next year, and hopefully I can get into it.
They're afraid of you, Doug. They're afraid to put you in that contest. Man. They know you're going to make them look bad. You're going to go all Tim Legler on them.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I'll get there some point. Now that we'll be in the spotlight a little more this year, so hopefully that'll help.
Yeah, and speaking of that spotlight, I mean, of course, being, like I mentioned, a 10-year veteran coming up this year, is there any particular guys on the team, even last year, that you kind of put your arm around or helped out, kind of like Jimmy Butler did for you back in the day?
I try to help out with Jeremy as much as I can. We've got along very well. And, he's obviously working on his jump shot, so I try and help him with things mentally, and just trying to be there for him if he has any questions. I never want to overdo it because I know everyone has a lot of people in their ear. So I'm always there for anyone, but I never want to overdo it, because I know that this league is tough, and you have so many people in your ear, and you want to be so good. So I'm always there. And, Trey Jones has been a guy I've gotten really close with, this last couple of years. And Keldon, me and him sit by each other on the plane. So I try to be there for all these guys. And, I think they're all going to have great careers.
A lot of, I told you before we started, several of former Spurs happen to be very good longtime friends of mine. And all of them, I'm not sure about Bruce Bowen, but certainly Avery and Sean Elliott said that they got into drinking red wine because of Pop. Pop's big into red wine. He's got a really nice Pinot Noir at his vineyard up in Oregon, A to Z, product placement, whatever. So are you a red wine drinker, or has Pop tried to steer you into that particular beverage?
Oh, yes. I've really gotten into it. And now adding Brett Brown to the mix on staff has made it even worse. So it's a habit now on the road. You got to be ready to drink. And, they make it so much fun with the team dinners. And, they bring their own wine on the road. And it's just cool to talk to these guys about that stuff because they're so passionate. I think they've been drinking it forever. And I think a lot of us always have questions about wine, what we should get. And they always tell us the right one to get when we go to the store. So it's amazing. Bruce Bowen, now I only see him on the golf course, and he's not drinking wine anymore, I'm sure. But he's a great guy, like you said. And Sean Elliott, Avery, they're all just unbelievable human beings.
I'm so blessed to have been able to spend years working with those guys. I'm a Boston Celtics fan, full disclosure, but my second favorite team really always has been the Spurs, just out of respect, to just the system, the success, and just the kind of people that come through that system. Even when guys leave San Antonio and go on to other teams, they carry that with them. Derek White's a really good example of that. He came out of San Antonio, carried that. So it's almost like people who play for that team seem to become like culture carriers that make their next teams better as a result of that pedigree.
For sure. Yeah. It all starts, with the Spurs. I obviously wasn't drafted by them. It took me a while to get to them. But everything you said is true. All those guys that I've played with throughout my career that have come from San Antonio are just the ultimate pros, the ultimate unselfish guys. And, I'm salty you guys got D White because he was such a good friend, and he's an amazing player. And I think the Celtics, he's gonna have a huge year, obviously, and just wait for his new hairdo. I saw him at a wedding this summer, and he shaved it off, so he's ready. He's ready to roll.
He looks like Ross now.
Yeah, he does.
He's trying to copy me. I see.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, we really do appreciate your time here tonight. One last question that I have for you outside of the obvious with your new teammate and kind of getting rolling. What are you most looking forward to next season? Is there any personal goals that you have or something that you're hoping to make a team goal this year?
I'm looking forward to a lot of red wine, that's for sure, as we talked about. But I just really want to make the playoffs. And, I think that's our goal. And, I think everyone on this team is ready to win, and we got the guy we wanted, and I think he's going to be special. And I think people got to be patient with him, but I think we're going to be a competitive team. I think we can surprise some people, and I'm just really excited to get to work. And I think you mentioned earlier this is the Josh Tibbin episode, and just want to give him a shout out because I love Josh, and I'm guessing he's on a golf course somewhere right now too.
Yeah, we name every episode with the episode number. We honor a player, and unfortunately, when you get to number 58, there's really no NBA players that ever worn the jersey number. So I've now switched over to some NBA referees to kind of give them some love because, of course, as you just said, he's someone that you respect and like, and I think it's important for basketball fans around the world to know that they're people too. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that watching the game on a night-to-night basis. So it's been kind of fun introducing some of the referees into our show as well.
I love that. He deserves credit. And, I think he's very worthy to have an episode named after him.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you happened to stop by during the Josh Tibbin episode. And once again, Doug, we want to thank you for being on the show here tonight. And we wish you all the best next season. And I know most certainly we'll all be watching your team play. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I appreciate it, guys. Anytime you need me, I'm here. So I'll continue to watch, and it's great chatting with you guys.
Awesome. All right,
Thanks,
Doug. Thank you.
Right, thank you. See you
All right,
guys.
and with that, we've reached our halftime buzzer, and we'll take a quick break.
Oh, after that extended delay, actually it's just a few seconds, but we really thank Doug. But listen, before we get started into the second half of the show, our partner Ross lives in Phoenix, Arizona, or
Yep.
in the Metro Phoenix area.
I'm in Phoenix.
Okay, so Phoenix, Arizona is kind of like, seemingly at the gates of hell these days because of 20 straight days of temperatures that are 110 degrees. It's a huge news story. And here on 48 Minutes, we like to share a little bit of our own lives with people so that you all who listen kind of know us a little bit. So I wanted Ross to just kind of tell you and us what it's like right now, kind of trying to live a normal life in a place that's anything but normal. What's it like right now in Phoenix, Ross?
Well, currently it's 7:05 p.m. It's still 107 outside. I can tell you definitely have to make some life adjustments during the summer times, especially a record-breaking summer like this one is right now. You go from walking your dog at a normal time to about 2 hours earlier than you typically would, just because the pavement would be too hot on their paws. So anything from walking your dog to the amount of time, of course, you spend outside. I mean, going outside to grill this summer, I know that's a huge thing around the Midwest and East Coast during the summertime is, cookouts. Well, you're not doing many cookouts because you're already cooking if you walk outside. So to fire up the grill to 400 degrees on top of the 110 that it already is just isn't a lot of fun. And honestly would make it quite hard to even kind of time grilling, your meats. I mean, it's going to be that much quicker. So, in all seriousness, though, it has been a concerning summer. We've heard a ton about some elderly people that fall and have to go to the hospital because they've burned their skin on the concrete outside because it is so hot. We have a lot of pets that get dehydrated and some that are left outside too long and end up escaping and then get lost out there. And obviously, just a lot of bad things can happen when they're overexposed to the sun, just like any other human would be. So, just trying to make it through. Obviously, I'm fortunate enough to have a swimming pool. So it's been nice to kind of go outside at night and swim for a little bit. It does not boil, but it is my wife's favorite temperature right now because it is absolutely bath water. If you turned on the warm water in your bath and let it sit there for probably about the first 30 seconds, that's the temperature of my my pool right now, which is pretty unreal. But it still feels good because it's that hot outside. And so it's nice to kind of get some exercise, move the arms, legs, do some laps. That way, because you're definitely not running or doing much walking outside. So appreciate you asking, Bruce. Obviously, thinking about all the people here in Phoenix. Hopefully they're staying cool, staying hydrated, and we'll definitely make it through as we always do out here. And with that, let's go ahead and get to our second half here. I thought it'd be fun to play some off-season winners and losers. So we're all going to take a crack at one team we think is a winner and one team that we think is a loser. But let's go ahead and start off with our winners. And Bruce, I'll start with you. Who did you pick as a winner of the offseason?
In my mind, a clear winner, not the clear winner, but a clear winner, the Houston Rockets. Look at what they've done. They have a new head coach, Ime Udoka. He's going to be great with this young roster. He's going to hold them accountable. He's going to make them play defense. And that's the foundation for any winning team, is a team that defends. They signed Fred VanVleet for outside shooting and leadership, even though World B will tell you what a brutal year VanVleet had shooting the three last season. Still, he's a threat, and he will let it go. So, that's something that and his leadership in practice, on the team plane, on the team bus, along with Udoka, is going to make a big difference. They signed Dillon Brooks, kind of the bad boy of the league these days. What do they get with Dillon Brooks? They get toughness, they get defense, they get a little bit of attitude. And I'm sure he's going to mix it up with his young teammates in practice, probably toughen them up a little bit, throw a few bows, show them what it's going to be like when they have to play against the real big boys. They picked up 6'11" Jock Lonsdale for some front court depth to work behind, Şengün and their bigs. They signed Jeff Green from the Denver Nuggets, veteran leader, energy off the bench, a physical marvel, really, at the age of 36. He's got so much bounce and a world of information and experience. Again, a great mentor for some of the young guys on their team, like Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore, two studs that they got in the first round. We'll see how much, burn they get in the early going. But I think as the season goes on, these guys are going to get a chance to play. And just for no good reason at all, they added Aaron Holiday for point guard depth behind Kevin Porter Jr. So I think that's a team that has made a lot of great moves, and I would consider them to be, if not the winner, a winner during the offseason so far.
I think that's well said, Bruce. Couldn't agree more with you there. They have done everything right this offseason as far as making a coaching change, bringing in Ime Udoka and obviously some big veterans, and also were one of the winners on draft night. They got 2 projected top 10 picks in the first round. So quite amazing. And then they tapped that off with a trip to the Summer League Finals as well. So World B, what do you have as your team for a winner this offseason?
Well, like Bruce said, I wouldn't say this team is the winner of all teams in the offseason. So, but hear me out. We picked on them at length since February when they made this ridiculous trade that we all said was, except for me. There was a really bad trade. But I put the Mavericks as a winner this offseason. So hear me out. Hear me out here. Yeah, the whole Kyrie thing is a mess. It was a mess from the beginning, and it looked bad at the end when they actually sat this team to try and get a hold of that 10th pick and not have to give it to the Knicks. And then they go out and they sign him for about $40 million a year. So on the surface, it doesn't look like it looks like it's just a zoo there in Dallas. But I don't think it really is. And for starters, the deal for Kyrie is just 3 years. So it's not 5 or 6 years for a guy who's going to be about 34 or so when the deal runs out. And the fact is, when he was on the court, the Mavericks were at their most efficient offensively. There was about 121 points per 100 possessions, which is really impressive for any team. So clearly, with Kyrie and Luka on the court together, I think they were just 5-11 when they both played. But offensively, that team was a juggernaut. They were about 119 points per 100 possessions. So the offense, and now you're going to get them for a full season. 16 games probably isn't a fair barometer for the future of a team. But the offense was clicking from the start. So I don't think it has to be as bad as it appears. And then you throw in the fact that, they got that number 10 pick and they traded it and got 2 first-rounders out of it. 2 guys who were defensive-minded, the one of them being the center from Duke, Lively, I believe. And, he's going to help these, I don't know how productive they're going to be, but their defensive reputation, so they're going to have a shot there. They also were fiscal, it doesn't sound like they're fiscal friendly when they give Kyrie $40 million a year, but they did stay under the luxury tax. They were able to get Davis Bertans' contract off the books, and they did that and got a trade exception out of it. So what they do, they go and get Richaun Holmes, who people may remember a few years ago was a quality player with the Kings. He flopped last year. He didn't, played about half the games and only averaged about 3 points a game. But he's a great pick and roll guy for a couple of players who like to pick and roll, especially Luka, who loves to operate under that. So there's another potential offseason pickup. And then Bruce's guy, Grant Williams, comes over in a sign and trade. Now he could end up being a number 3 guy on this team that really doesn't have one at the moment. If you look at their roster, they don't have a clear-cut number 3 guy behind Luka and Kyrie. So you got all these guys. Yeah, they're not competing for a championship, but I think they're a lot better off than they were when the season ended.
Yeah, I mean, I think you raised some good points there, World B. I'm glad that you took them and kind of made a case for them, because I do think it's important to keep in mind as much as we were down on them last year and even this summer with the Kyrie signing, I think the other things that they did, as you mentioned, Lively, Grant Williams, Rashawn Holmes, I think it's going to be a huge fit there. I mean, he was kind of just buried on that bench for Mike Brown last year in Sacramento, and I think he still has a lot to offer. I couldn't agree with you more. I think they obviously had a better summer than a lot of people kind of are giving him credit for. So
it just gets lost in the whole Kyrie mess. The whole situation. It looks like it's a dysfunctional franchise. Mark Cuban, for all the stuff we want to talk about, he makes all the headlines. He's not really a dysfunctional owner. He doesn't. He'll never be confused with James Dolan when it comes to head cases as an owner. He doesn't. He's obviously, we came into the league as one of those guys, but he's obviously calmed down over the years, and he's won a title. He's gotten 2 trips to the finals, won a title. He's not a head case of an owner, so it's not as bad. I think that's the reason I put him in my winner column, because they're not as bad as people make them out to be. And I think they have a case to really be a lot better than people think.
For sure. As for my winner, it's a little bit more obvious here. I mean, Bruce, you asked me about Phoenix earlier. I'm going to tell you about Phoenix right now as well, because I have them a winner of this offseason, the Phoenix Suns. And I'll be the first to tell you, and I'll go on record and say it, I hated the Bradley Beal deal. I mean, I could be proven wrong on this, so he could obviously make me look foolish by saying that, but where the Suns won me over was actually in free agency when they rounded out their bench with Eric Gordon, re-signing Damian Lee, picking up Keita Bates-Diop, Chimezie Metu, a king that I talked about much of last season as a kind of a dark horse off the bench guy. Drew Eubanks they took him from the Portland Trailblazers, another guy that came from the San Antonio Spurs originally. And then obviously most recently they just picked up Bol, who I think is a guy that can certainly add some length, versatility, and someone I'm sure we'll saw some glimmers of hope in as an Orlando Magic fan. And, I would be foolish to forget this guy, Bruce. They also picked up Yuta the Shooter Watanabe, one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA last season. Certainly right up there with Doug McDermott as far as percentages are concerned. And then we get to their coaching staff. And, hopefully, and I stress hopefully here, they'll get some addition by subtraction by keeping DeAndre Ayton and dumping Monty Williams, who clearly wasn't an Ayton supporter, wasn't going to help him grow into his game. And so I'm still very unsold on, how the Suns will go ahead and figure all this out without a traditional point guard on the roster. But the star talent is in order. And I think Frank Vogel as the new head coach was a great hire. He has plenty of weapons to be creative with, and, he can turn to off that Phoenix bench. And also one other thing I'd like to mention here, their 52nd overall pick, Toumani Camara, looks to be an absolute steal in the draft, as he had a fantastic summer league. And it could be a complementary piece to the rotation as soon as this year. Kumara is already 23 years old, so he's a well-polished college player. So keep an eye on the Phoenix Suns this year. Again, I'm sure we'll be talking about them a lot throughout the start of next season, but they should be a lot of fun to watch with all the changes that they have made. Now, Bruce, let's get to the bad part here, the losers. Who do you have as your loser of the offseason?
The Atlanta Hawks. They basically gave away John Collins, who started at the 4 since his second season, averaging almost 16 and 8 over the course of his career. And he's still just 25 years old. Okay. I have no idea how they think that letting that guy go is going to make this team better. Yeah, he struggled last season. He was under 30% from threes. But I think all the constant talk about, are they going to trade him? Are they going to some of that stuff has to affect a guy. Because all John Collins ever did was be a really good guy, a good teammate, great with the media, very good, good finisher, good alley-oop finisher, good on the pick and roll. I expect him to do really well in Utah, and I think they're going to live to regret the fact that they gave up on that guy, because when he gets to Utah and he gets unleashed out there, you're gonna see John Collins return to his form. But hey, in return they got fellow Believe podcaster Rudy Gay and a 2026 second round pick. Gay, unfortunately, was then sent to OKC and he was waived. So they really got nothing for John Collins except for that 2026 second-round pick. As I mentioned when I was talking about the Rockets, they let Aaron Holiday walk, and he signed with Houston. But here's the good news. They did draft the next Kobe Buffkin, with the number 15 pick. He'll provide some depth for DeJounte Murray and for Trae Young in the backcourt. We'll see if the next Kobe is any good.
Yeah, on a brighter note for the Hawks, I mean, just to kind of spin this into a positive, congrats to Trae Young, who got married this past weekend. So we're going to end on a good note here for the Atlanta Hawks, but I tend to agree with you there, Bruce. I was not a fan of their offseason. World B, who do you have?
I picked the 76ers as my loser of the offseason, and they have time to get off my list there because it's just all the turmoil that's going on with this franchise since we forget for a moment they had the third best record in the league this past year.
Yep.
I've mentioned this throughout all our podcast episodes. They were one of 3 teams to be top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency, along with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Celtics. And then it's the 76ers. I mean, they had that good of a season, and you would never know it by everything that's gone on since they got eliminated in the playoffs by the Celtics. Lost their coach, Doc Rivers, who only gave them their best season since 2001 when they went to the finals. That's 23 years. That's what having the best season gets you, is showing the door. And then, James Harden only led the league in assists. He wants out. Joel Embiid goes on and wins the MVP. He's putting everybody in a panic mode in Philly because he may want out if Philly can't produce a winning franchise. They bring in Nick Nurse. That's great having a championship caliber coach there. But now the knock on him is, well, since Kyrie left, you got one season out of Kyrie and you got a title out of it. What have he done since then? He's been a quality coach, but hasn't gotten any closer to a title than Doc Rivers has. So I don't necessarily say it was a bad move to get let Doc go, but we're talking about a team that was so good last year and had legitimate championship aspirations, and now they're coming into this season at the end of July, and it just feels like there is total disarray, even though they still have Harden, they still have Embiid, and maybe they start the season with those guys. But it's just going to be a zoo, especially if those guys are still on the team at training camp. It's just going to be a zoo of a training camp to follow this team when it doesn't seem like anybody's happy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. And we thought we were behind this in Philly once they got rid of Ben Simmons. But now, of course, the James Harden stuff pops up. And it's unfortunate. I feel like this team and this franchise just continues to have a lot of distractions around it. And it's not always about the basketball, which you pointed out. So great points there. As for my loser, I'm going with the Chicago Bulls. Now, listen, I like Javon Carter and Torrey Craig. I'm actually a fan of both of them. But I'm a fan of both of them on a contending team. All this team is contending for is a chance to get bounced in the first round of next year's playoffs. The Bulls are essentially running things back with the same group, having re-signed Nikola Vucevic and Ayu Dosunmu, while also keeping Zach LaVine along with DeMar DeRozan. Sure, the Bucks decided to do the same, re-signing Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, but Milwaukee won a leading 58 games last season. The Bulls didn't even crack 500 last season. Meanwhile, if the Bulls look to their left, the Indiana Pacers are younger and got a lot better this offseason. They look to their right, the Detroit Pistons are younger and got better, and also got a hell of a coach in Monty Williams, who can definitely kind of upstart this group to get going and be competitive as soon as next season. So things are not looking too good in Chicago, if you ask me, and honestly did not really understand much of their offseason, just deciding, you know what, we're going to re-sign everybody to make sure we go 40 and 42 again this season. Doesn't seem like a really good recipe for success.
Absolutely agree with that, by the way. I totally
stuck in second gear.
Absolutely.
Yep. So with that, let's go ahead and get into our final thoughts here. And Bruce, I'll let you lead us off.
Thanks, Ross and World B. Kemba Walker has always been a player I've admired. After leading UConn to the NCAA championship in 2011, He was selected number 9 overall by Charlotte in the 2011 draft. After 8 healthy and productive seasons in Charlotte, he was traded to the Celtics, where he signed a max deal and played well, but then started suffering multiple knee injuries, and his career headed south from there. He then bounced around, heading to OKC, where he never actually even suited up, then to the Knicks, then to the Pistons, where he also never suited up, and then to the Mavs, where he played briefly last season before being released in January. When Kemba was at his best, he played the game with a joy and enthusiasm that made him a fan favorite due to his small size and huge production. Now at the age of 33, the 4-time All-Star has signed a 1-year deal to play for AS Monaco in the EuroLeague. He didn't do it because he needed the money. He's earned over $160 million in his NBA career. He did it because he loves the game and he feels that he can still ball. Well, let's hope Kemba is healthy and productive and he is able to delight fans in Europe the way he did during his NBA career. Good luck, Kemba.
Yeah, good luck to Kemba Walker. Obviously, that's a heck of a signing overseas, and I'm sure he'll attract a lot of fans to those games. And hopefully, he still has enough left in the tank to go ahead and impress them as well. World B.
Thank you, Ross. By the way, if I had an all-time starting 5 of players that I just enjoy watching play throughout my NBA fandom, which goes about 40-something years, I don't know what it would be, but Kemba Walker would be on it. So I echo Bruce's thoughts on that. Actually, sticking with the Hornets theme, this past weekend saw the Charlotte Hornets officially get new ownership as Michael Jordan's 13-year run as head beekeeper came to an end. Headed by Rick Schnall and Gabe Pluck, and were approved by 29-1 vote by the NBA Board of Governors, with the Knicks' James Dolan the lone no vote. I mean, anything to get your name in the news, right? So the tenure of Michael Jordan as an NBA owner, he still has as a majority owner, he still has a minority stake in the franchise. Will be seen in most circles as a failure with just 3 winning seasons and 2 playoff appearances, both first-round losses, and that perception is understandable. But a couple of things to consider when evaluating Jordan's time as a majority owner. He got rid of the silly Bobcats name and returned the franchise to its more recognizable nickname, the Hornets, along with a return to their traditional colors that they came in with in the 80s. And in addition, as someone who covered this team for a season and remains a strong follower of them since even after I moved out of the Charlotte area a few years ago, I can tell you that going to a Hornets game at the Spectrum Center was really a good family-friendly time. Now, wins and losses may be how you're judged as a franchise, and that's fine. But providing a good atmosphere for fans counts for something with me. And in the end, Jordan, who reportedly paid less than $300 million for the franchise in 2010, was able to sell the team for approximately $3 billion. Being the competitor that he was during his playing days, there's no doubt that Jordan's desire and determination to see his Hornets compete for a championship or at very least a deep playoff run was first and foremost. But coming away with billions from a mediocre franchise sure sounds like a win to me too.
Absolutely. Well said there will be, and a couple tidbits on that sale as well. Country singer Eric Church is part of the new ownership group, and also rapper J. Cole. And you mentioned James Dolan, so I'm sure you guys have seen that spear in Las Vegas, right? By now you've seen a photo of it. I guess he's a big part of that group that put that thing together. So he's staying relevant in Las Vegas as well, as that is quite
relevant in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, with that, let me just get to my final thought here before we get World B going here tonight. My final thoughts on Mike Conley, who was recently honored with this year's Joe Dumars Trophy for winning the NBA's Sportsmanship Award, which was designed to honor a player who best represents the ideals of sportsmanship on the court. I could bore you with how the process works to win the award, but I'd rather utilize my time to point out 2 things. One, this is Conley's 4th time winning the award, which is the most in league history. But most importantly, let me remind you that despite being a 16-year veteran in the NBA and averaging over 31 minutes per contest throughout his career, Conley has never picked up a technical foul. Now, I don't care how good of a guy you are. This is just absolutely nuts. and beyond impressive. That's before we factor into things that Conley has also played in 78 playoff games in which he holds a 37-41 record, not even above 500. And he didn't make his first All-Star game appearance until 2021, which is the longest career wait for a first-time All-Star ever. And oh, by the way, he has earned over $276 million off contracts over the course of his career. So he surely got some money to burn. When you add up all the factors, things have not always gone his way with the below 500 playoff record, obviously not making all-star teams. And it just doesn't even seem to make any sense. But, congrats to Mike Conley. He certainly deserves the award for sportsmanship, and beyond impressed with his professional integrity during the good times and bad in the NBA. And I certainly will bet against any NBA player playing 16 years in the league and not picking up a technical foul. I will go ahead and take that bet right now. What about you guys?
Hey, listen, his father might have actually been a better athlete than he. His dad, Mike Conley Sr., was the gold medalist at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics in the triple jump. Okay.
Wow.
I actually had a chance to meet him because I was working that Olympics for NBC back in '92. And I actually met him. His dad, Mike Sr., became a lawyer and actually was Mike's agent. So, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree there. I mean, what a great, family.
Absolutely. And with that, that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe, presented by Bet Online. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everyone.